Hey, you made it. How you doing, bud? So I made sure to get you a little coffee. Okay. So that's for you. Now, okay. Hopefully you like sugar, right? Of course we do. Whatever. Okay. So anyway, I know. I'm the one that called you. I wanted to talk to you because you know that I don't like gossip. Okay. I really don't. By the way, tea's really good. I I just wanted to call you because there's some stuff that's been going on that I just like like I said, I don't like gossip, but there's just some things that like you just gotta share, right? So recently, here's the deal, okay? First off, you didn't hear this from me, okay? But here's what's going on is that I got a buddy, right? I got this friend named Matthew. You remember Matthew? You know what? You probably knew him different. His name is Levi. Yeah, he went by Levi. It's a whole thing. But anyway, so Matthew, if you're his friend, you would know. So he's writing this manuscript, right? Now, listen, this manuscript. He surprises me, and again, I don't like gossip. And first off, you didn't hear this from me. You didn't hear any of this from me. Okay, but the important thing. So Matthew comes up to me, right, and he says, "Hey, can we talk? Can we meet up?" So he brings me this book, this manuscript, if you will. And in this manuscript, he writes down like he's trying to write a story. So I'm sitting there, you know me. I'm just like, all right, cool. I don't know what exactly you need from me, but obviously you want to talk about this book that you're writing. So I start asking him questions. I'm just like, all right, so what's the book about? What's the give me the lowdown, give me the, as the young people say, give me the tea. So he starts telling me about he's trying to write about this one guy. We'll get to that. It's a guy, right? So he's trying to write, and he's kind of looking into like the background of this guy. And so I'm asking him like, well, what do you mean background? Like, are you looking at like dirt on him? Are you like writing down a biography? Like, what is this about? And he goes, it's kind of like a biography, right? So here's Matthew. He's make sure no one can hear. Um, here's Matthew, right? So Matthew's writing this biography. So as he's writing this biography, by the way, have you tried it? It's good. It's really good. You should. Oh, okay. So I'm just saying, I love to drink tea when I'm having a little bit of conversation, if you know what I mean. So here's Matthew. Okay, so Matthew's talking about this thing that he's writing, and he writes down and he says, "Listen, I know that you know some people," and I'm like, okay, like maybe I know a few people here and there. I am sometimes known as a historian, so I'm like, it's good, it's good. Your tea's good. Okay, if not, I can get you some more. You're good. All right, so here we are, right? We're talking, and as we're talking, he starts to tell me that there's a list of people that he would like to include in this biography of his, whatever the case is, story, if you will, narrative, as the intellects like to say. So he has this list, and so he tells me, "Hey, I just kind of wanted to go over this list. I feel like you, as a history buff, which was weird because I feel like he was saying that I was a gossip. I don't know. Anyway, so he's just kind of getting to his point. So I'm like, all right, so what's going on? So who are these lists? So he starts listing them, right? I brought part of the manuscript. I'll just see if I can find it in my. My backpack is full. Taking notes here and there. Sometimes you just watch somebody and just kind of make a little mental. So okay, so he starts to write down, and he starts off by, according to this giant book that he gives me, he goes, okay, we're gonna start off with Abraham, and immediately I was like, Abraham, the Abraham? We're talking about and I just had this, and so he's like, "Oh, come on, like, what's going on?" I was like, "Do you really?" I mean, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Abraham, phenomenal guy, right? Definitely known as the, you know, father, the patriarch, if you will, about all of Israel. Really, like, honestly, that's where God started his covenant promise. He kind of set Abraham aside from everybody else. Changed his name. I don't know if you knew that or not. Changed his name. His original name was Abram. Changed it to Abraham, which means father of multitudes. Kind of neat, right? So I'm looking at my friend Matthew, and I was like, I don't know if I'd start there. And the reason why, do you know? I mean, have you heard about Abraham? Do you know about Abraham? And first, listen, you didn't hear this from me. Okay, let's be clear. Abraham, his wife, right? So his wife Sarah, really wonderful, wonderful lady. Honestly, great. According to history, great, phenomenal. So he had this weird thing. Kind of did it twice, where he kind of pretended if you will. I call that a lie, but he lied about his wife, and he said that he was his sister. Ugh, right? Kind of weird. And then and the reason why is because there were two different men that kind of found her pretty and attractive, and so he didn't want to die, and decided to lie and say, "Oh yeah, it's my sister." So, um, I mean, do you want to add him to the list? So I was like, I don't know if I'd start there. That's a rough start to a story. So he okay. So he's like, no, it's good, it's good. I like Abraham. I feel like it all starts there. And I'm like, well, I guess. So then he goes, all right. So I'm like, who else you got on the list? And he's like, and then there's they're from Abraham. He went to Isaac, and I was like, all right, now we're good. We're doing good because Isaac, honestly, great kid, nothing negative. Just a real good overall kind of person. And I said, okay. And then from there, and he goes, and then I'll go from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob. And I'm like, oh, yeah, no, Jacob. Yeah. The heel grabber, that's his name. It means, um, his name means heel grabber, but what they really meant was that he was oh man, how could I say this? And I mean, God bless his heart, right? Weasel? Yeah, I'd go with Weasel. So so I'm looking at my friend Matthew, and I'm like, listen, I don't know if you've heard, I don't know if anyone's ever told you. Again, you did not hear this from me. The thing about Jacob is that he tried to steal his brother's birthright from his dad. And the way that he went about it, just super sus, like really sneaky, kind of. So he kind of dresses up as his brother, kind of hairy, kind of smelly, orange kind of fur. I'm not kidding. The man looked like a Wookiee. But my point being is that here's he comes up and his dad's blind. I mean, come on, at this point. And so, I mean, you're manipulating and lying to your blind father. I don't know that I would add him to really any story. But here's Matthew, and he's like, "Oh, I mean, I'm trying to just keep this lineage thing going." And I'm like, "It's a lineage thing now." Like, okay, so I'm fine. So we kept the Jacob part. So I'm just adding my 2 cents, and we're going. Okay, so he goes on from. Let me read you some of these. It's phenomenal. Okay, so we have Abraham, we have Isaac, we have Jacob. He started to talk about from Jacob, who was the father of Judah and his brothers. And I said, oh, that he had a lot of brothers, right? And Matthew's like, oh yeah, I know there's Reuben and all, the rest of them, and Levi and whatever. And then oh yeah, and then there's Joseph, Technicolor dream coat guy. I was like, yeah. So why don't you add one of those guys? I mean, I personally would pick Joseph. And he's like, oh no, but let's go with Judah. And I was like, that's not. You don't have to. You literally have 12 options and you pick the one. Do you want to know what? So I was like, listen, I looked at Matthew and I'm like, have you heard about Judah? Has anyone talked to you about it? So, first off, you didn't hear this from me. So he starts talking to me about Judah, and I'm like, listen, here's the down low. I know I'm spilling my coffee everywhere. Or tea. What did I have? Doesn't matter. Here's the deal. Judah. When it came to, I mean, and I look at my friend Matthew, and I was like, you've heard the story, right? Okay, so you know that those brothers they hated Joseph, so they wanted to sell him into slavery. Well, actually, the first idea was let's kill him, and that was kind of everybody's consensus, and it was really bad. Reuben, by the way, Reuben was the one that stepped in and goes, "How about we don't? How about we don't kill today? Wouldn't that be great if we don't kill our siblings?" Judah's the one who chimed in last minute over here and goes, guys, if we're going to get rid of him, can't we get rich off of him? Judah, you saw the words that I could use, but we're watching a sermon on a Sunday morning. Judah is the one who initiated the conversation to sell Joseph into slavery. You want to add that guy to the list? I said, Matthew, come on, man. You got options. And he goes, I just want Judah. Hallelujah to that. So he went anyway. So here's the manuscript that he gave me. All right. So he goes from Judah. Judah fathered Perez and Zerah, I guess the kid's name is, by Tamar. All right. At that point, I said, I need you to stop. I really need you to stop. And so then I got Matthew over here, and he's like, what? It's like, man, I'm asking you for historical facts. I'm asking you for a little bit of background. I'm like, little bit of background? What, have you not done your homework? Like, I need to drink. You mentioned Tamar. Okay, so here I was like, yeah, do you know anything about Tamar? First off, you didn't hear this from me. I had to look at my friend Matthew. I had to tell him, Tamar, do you know what she was? She was a Gentile woman. First off, let's be clear. If you're going to write a narrative, you don't add the ladies. And if you are going to add the ladies, can you at least pick nice ladies that don't have reputations? These ladies, and so okay, so here's the deal. Okay, just so we can be clear. Tamar, right? So Tamar, I'm looking over at Matthew. Listen, do you remember Tamar? Have you heard about Tamar? Said Tamar had a couple kids, which are mentioned that you just said, right? You said that those are. You know, she was married. She had those kids out of wedlock. Come on, like, and she pretended to be something that she wasn't, and that, you know, kind of lady of the night kind of. I looked over at my friend Matthew, and I was like, "Come on, you don't add women to this line, and let alone are you going to talk about her? Not Tamar. Not only for the fact that she's also a Canaanite woman. I know, guys, I didn't want to go there, but I have to. She was a Canaanite woman. Those are the worst enemies of Israel at the time. I can't believe that that's what he's. You know what? Matthew decides it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. He continues on with his list. He keeps reading. I'm going to send you this manuscript. I mean, that's how bad it is. We keep going through these. Okay, so from Tamar, here we go. We have Perez, who fathered Hezron, Hezron, who fathered Aram, Aram, who fathered Abimedad, Abimedad, who fathered Nahshon, Nahshon, who fathered Salmon. What a name, right? Like, you can pick. Okay, so Salmon over here, who fathered Boaz. Now that's where I got like, okay, you know what? We're redeemed. We're doing good. Boaz, phenomenal man. And he goes, also, I'm going to mention where we're going to talk about Boaz's mom. Were you not there for the conversation we just had? I looked over at my friend Matthew, and I was like, are you kidding me? We just talked about not talking about the women, and then you're going to go. And he goes, well, I just want to talk about Rahab. Rahab was from Jericho, and she was another Gentile. So far, these women that you are mentioning are just. They're not part of God's promised people. I'm looking at the story going, you know what, dude? I'd scrap the whole thing. I would. I wouldn't write this down. So far, the only people you're mentioning are the worst of. Why would you pick these people? Oh my God. Rahab. By the way, she's a liar. You didn't hear that from me. Okay? The word on the street was that when it came, I don't know, some spies from Israel were like hanging out with her, and she decided to lie through her teeth and tell them, oh, they're not here. They ran out the window. I don't even remember. Come on, we all know she's a Canaanite woman and she's a liar. I'm telling you, my friend Matthew, sometimes it goes in one ear, out the other. Can't speak with the man. But he said it was all right. So I said, okay, well, look, come on, like, throw them at me. What other names you got? He's over here talking. He goes, all right, so here we've got Rahab, Boaz's mother. So Boaz gave birth to Obed by Ruth. And I said, are we done? Are we done? You know what? It's been phenomenal. Why don't we just put this tea down? Why don't we just meet next year? Because this is Ruth. Now, don't get me wrong. Okay. First, listen here. I told this to Matthew, and I'm telling you this now. You didn't hear this from me. Ruth was actually a sweet lady. Okay, she was. She was very sweet. But Ruth, oh, can I tell you something? I don't know if you heard this about Ruth, and I had to tell Matthew the exact same thing. Apparently, this is a non-popular subject. Ruth was a Moabite. I know you're giving me the same confused face that Matthew gave me. Do you want to know why? Do you want to know why it's such an issue? Because it says in Deuteronomy that you are not allowed to have any sort of relationship, let alone a covenant with any sort of Moabite. Ruth is one of those. And here he is talking about somebody else. This story is about a different guy. We'll get there when we get there. But the guy that he's talking about a biography, and he's adding Ruth, who's a Moabite, and you're just getting, come on, come on. You know the rules of Judaism in Israel. No one's going to read this book. He doesn't listen. He doesn't listen. Kind of like someone I know. Just kidding. I'm not. I've never told anyone that about you. Come on, you're a great listener. Now, he goes on. So we left the Ruth thing alone. I said, all right, just be prepared. It's not going to sell. It's not going to sell. But all right, he continues on. So his little lineage over here, we've gone from a Ruth to Obed, who is her kid. Obed is the father of Jesse. And then Jesse, of course, has a kid. I don't want to. King David? And I said, I'll give you that. Okay, King David, fine. Everybody loves him. He is the highlight of Israel, the greatest king and a priest. And you talk about a warrior. Yeah. This guy made some mistakes. And immediately Matthew looks at me and goes, what mistakes? And I'm like, have you not heard about David? And then he goes, okay, well, let's continue on with the list. And I said, okay, well, better. I'm just saying, David's got a little bit of a history. He says, David fathered Solomon by Uriah's wife. That's when I said, you know what? This meeting's over. We're not having this conversation because you don't care about your book. You know what he told me? He told me, Uriah. And I said, do you know the story of Uriah? And he's like, it's something about, some sort of mistake David made. I'm like, mistake. Oh, man. Here's the deal. With David, I said, listen, you didn't hear this from me. But these are facts. David decided to have an extramarital affair with Uriah's wife. And then he decides to call Uriah back from the field just so that he can send him with a note. He tried to get Uriah to sleep with his wife because he comes to find out David impregnated his wife while Uriah was fighting wars for David. You talk about a scandal? And then what happens? David sends him off with the note. You want to know what the note says? You want to know what the... You didn't hear this from me, but the word on the street is, the note said, put Uriah at the front and let him die. Remember, they're fighting a battle. Uriah's in the front. And guess what? Like a good soldier, he goes to the front and he dies. David then says, well, I guess you don't have a husband, and takes Bathsheba. By the way, she's also not an Israelite. Actually, I think she was. No, I think she was. Yeah, sorry. Gotta get my facts straight. So here's what happened. He takes her. She becomes a wife. And guess what? She gives birth to Solomon. But the drama that ensued with the prophet Nathan afterward, wow. So I said, are you sure you want to add Uriah's name in there? I mean, can we just skip over that? No? You want it? Okay. So besides this being, I'm just saying, besides this being a failure of a narrative, let's just keep going. So then he goes on. Did you know that Matthew listed a bunch of kings? So right after King David, then you have King Solomon. I was like, oh, Solomon. Yeah. So about Solomon. Great guy, right? Phenomenal. Smartest guy around. Most wisdom. I would be phenomenal, Dad. And Matthew looks at me and says, what did you say? And I was like, do you know about Solomon? Listen, you didn't hear this from me. But Solomon had more wives than there is sand on the beach, if you know what I'm saying. Not only that, he had wives, and then he had concubines, which I know sounds funny to you and I. You're like, what kind of language is that? King James over here. No, it's to translate it to the where how you might understand, or maybe the young people over here, side chicks. Had a lot of them. Yep, had a lot of kids, had a lot of adventures. The man was just never satisfied. It was just one thing after another. He literally wrote a book about how he did everything under the sun. You name it, he's done it. And you know what his conclusion is? None of it's worth it. Ecclesiastes, take some time, read the book. It's phenomenal, right? The man? I don't know that you want to add him to this. You know what? We've already screwed up this whole line. It's full of Gentiles, it's full of ladies, it's full of sketchiness, and it's full of people that don't know how to live life properly. Dysfunctional families, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, the list goes on. So it's just like, why not? Why not? Let's just do this who's who kind of thing and just ruin the whole story. He continues on. Oh my gosh, from Solomon, we have Rehoboam. Rehoboam was the father of Abijah. Abijah over here was the father of Asa. Asa, a Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat had a son named Uzziah. Uzziah, youngest king, by the way. I don't know if you knew that or not, but I was telling Matthew, youngest king, cool guy, right? Reigned for 52 years. Fun facts. So, Uriah also had a king named Jotham. Jotham also had a king named Ahaz. Ahaz, by the way, pretty popular guy. I don't know that I mentioned him too, but whatever. It's not my story. Ahaz, we continue, who fathered Hezekiah. Hezekiah, who was the father of Manasseh. Manasseh, the father of Amon. Again, the list of kings, not my favorite guys, but it's okay. It's your story. From Amon, he goes to Josiah. Josiah fathered Jeconiah. Can I tell you something about Jeconiah? Have you heard about Jeconiah? Neither have I. Did you know that Jeconiah had a brother that was popular? Listen, you didn't hear this from me. But I had to tell Matthew, why are you poking at his name? He's a nobody. And Matthew goes, I know, that's on purpose. Who in the world writes a biography and includes people's names, and including those names, you pick the least popular person? Again, bro, you had options. Apparently, Matthew doesn't know how to write a thing. It's okay. Some of us tell good stories. He continued on. He goes, oh, no, we got a few more. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how long is this list? Finally, he goes after the exile, because remember that time. And yes, what a wonderful way to add to the story. Let's just add the exile to the thing. After the exile, he had Jeconiah, fathered Shealtiel. Shealtiel also fathered Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel fathered Abuid. Can't pronounce his name. Abuid. Sure. Abuid apparently had a kid also. Eliakim. And Eliakim fathered Azar, and Azar fathered Zadok. Zadok fathered Akim. Akim fathered Eliud, and Eliud fathered Eleazar. Well, that sounds pretty cool, doesn't it? Except this list is a bunch of people that you're like, who are these guys? Finally, from Eleazar, we go to Mathan. Now I recognize it. Okay, now I know some people that know some people, and I know what line you're now following. And from Mathan, we went to Jacob. Jacob, who was the father of Joseph. And I was like, Joseph, remember? Carpenter guy? Yeah, dude, yeah, why not? Okay, right. I mean, so far this list is for the birds, so, so we just end there. Joseph. And Matthew has the audacity to tell me, no, there's one more. Joseph was the husband or betrothed of Mary. I'm like, Mary? Like Mary? Like Mary full of grace, Mary? I had to look at my friend Levi. Listen, you didn't hear this from me. But I had to look at my friend Levi and I was like, are you sure you want to add Mary? I mean, I don't know where this is landing, but so far it's like, I don't know, like what else I can tell you other than that. You've heard about Mary, right? Like, whatever, Mary. Okay. Again, with the ladies, I'm like, Mary, phenomenal young girl. Like, don't get me wrong. So sweet, so kind. Came from a good family. Really good family. She's betrothed to Joseph at one point, and according to history, she ends up dropping a bomb on him and says, like, I'm pregnant. That's normal. No, and so now she's on, not a good place, and she tells Joseph, oh, wait, it's from God. It's the Holy Spirit who did this. So now I looked at Matthew. I looked at Matthew telling me, and I was like, listen, you hear this from me. I don't know, man. I don't know. I just didn't know what to say. Joseph ends up, I heard, okay, word on the street is Joseph has a dream. And in the dream, God tells him it's okay. This literally is my kid. I'm sorry. So then Matthew's done with his little line of stuff, and then I'm like, all right, so this is it. This is how you want to start your book, and he's like, yeah, this is how I want to start it. I was like, okay, where are you landing this lineage thing? He finally looks at me and he goes, well, actually, I never wrote down. Let me write that down. So he starts writing, and then he doodles it into this rough draft. Who gave birth to Jesus, who is called the Messiah? I said, listen, let me give you some advice. Looking at Matthew straight in the eye, promise you, this is what I do. This is what I said. Okay, I didn't think it, I said it. I looked at Matthew and I said, if you are about to write a story about the greatest man that ever lived, you're about to write a story about the Son of God. If you're about to write a story about the one and only Jesus of Nazareth, the Jesus that comes with a title, and that is Christ. Are you talking about the Son of David, the one that is promised, the one who would redeem the world and completely renew all of us, forgiving us of our sins and restoring us to wholeness? Is this the one and only God made flesh? This is what we're talking about here. And you know what he says? Yeah. And I said, okay, well, you know what? Here's my suggestion. First off, start with that. Because the story that you're telling through this lineage thing, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Ruth, Tamar, you're talking about Boaz and his mama, and you're talking about David and Uriah, and then you're talking about Solomon, and then it's just like, bro, this entire, you got Gentiles in there, you got prostitutes in there, you have liars in there, you have people who like to give away their wives as pretending they're sisters. You have people that are stealing birthrights and lying to their blind fathers. Like you have the most broken, jacked up, drama filled, problematic lying that you could. The way you're telling this thing is ridiculous. But you can ease the blow if you start by describing who it's about. Let's start with Jesus and then end with Jesus, like a sandwich. If you do that, at least I don't know. And I looked at Matthew, seriously, I looked at Matthew and I was like, why are you doing this? Like, why would you write a lineage that is so messed up? And Matthew wouldn't look up from his paper. He's writing. You know Matthew. Matthew's the head in the book all the time. Like, he's writing for eternity. And I was like, are you writing down everything I'm saying? Like, what is your deal? And he looks up at me and he goes, I like it. I love it. And I'm like, what did I say? That was so profound that you can't talk to me. The man took another 90 seconds. All of a sudden, he puts the pen down. He looks at me. He goes, that's it. That's why I'm writing everybody that I'm writing. Apparently, he's writing this whole thing because everyone in the story is messed up. That's the point. I'm like, if that's the point. And he stops me right there before I said another word. And he goes, listen. He looks at me straight in the eye and he goes, you heard this from me. I'm going to start and I'm going to end with Jesus because Jesus is the one that redeems the line. The reason why Gentiles and liars and prostitutes and people who don't know how to function correctly in families are mentioned is because they are all part of the list of human beings that Jesus is trying to renew and restore. You're right. Well, Matthew says to me, you're right. It's like a sandwich. If we start with Jesus and end with Jesus, our story makes sense. Now, you didn't hear this from me, but apparently I make a really good author. You really want to know why I called you today? Invited you to some tea? Not only to spill the tea, and to share with you the chisme of Christmas. I realized that my story would make a whole lot more sense of my life if I started and end with Jesus. Everything in between is his redemption. Are you done with your tea? Cool. Can I grab that? Yeah. Okay. Sweet. Well, hey, we should do this again. It's been good. It's been real. You know what? I think next time, why don't we talk about your life? It gets a little awkward, doesn't it? Huh? No, but for real, I've been hearing some things. We'll see you.